and welcome back to ESO Live, the regular official Elder Scrolls Online show on Twitch. I'm Jessica Folsom, one of the ESO community managers.
I'm Gina Bruno, the other community manager for ESO English.
And we have a kind of a unique show for you today. We've taken some suggestions from you, our players, and are doing a couple new segments. So we hope you like them. We're not going to have a lot of big flashy news this time, but we think we'll have some pretty interesting stuff.
Meant to be interesting.
Yep. And hopefully fun.
Yeah.
And we will answer some of your questions as usual and have giveaways. So actually, let's get right into what the show overview is. So welcome back. It's good to be back.
It's great to be back. With a capital G.
You should expect to see some more regular shows and even one at PAX.
We will be live
coming
at
up
PAX.
here.
Yep. After that, we're going to... Wait. Sorry, I just realized something was missing. We're doing news. Coming up next, we're going to go over just, a few topics that have been pretty hot recently.
Then we will go into our Ask Us Anything, a segment where we answer some of your questions from the official forums and social media channels.
But before that, we'll be doing, we're just going to go out of order here. We'll be doing the anatomy of a bug fix with some of our QA guys. And that was actually an idea that we pulled from the forums.
Yep, and then the Ask Us Anything.
And then we'll do community creations. No, we'll do the dungeon segment.
We're off the rails already.
This is madness. Another new segment we're calling Development versus Reality with our dungeon lead, the funny guy, Mike Finnigan, and our senior QA tester, Jay Hartman. Again, idea that we pulled from the forums.
Then community creations and giveaways, of course, throughout the show.
Whew, made it.
So we are going to dive right into news and updates next. Okay.
Without a thingy?
Without a thingy.
Okay, well,
all
here
right.
we go.
So first up, why don't you go ahead and take it?
I certainly can. PC right now is on patch 256. If you haven't read the patch notes, they are on the forums. If you go into the patch notes section, they're sticking at the top there. But very interesting, 257 is going to be next Monday for PC, NA, and EU. We have some, it's kind of a small patch, but we have some fixes going in, including the Widowmaker set. We've been reading how that's not triggering with crafted poisons. That's going to be fixed on Monday, along with Commander Pantheus, who's in Kvatch Arena. He sometimes doesn't spawn in, particularly for Aldmeri Dominion. He will be fixed. We did a thing yesterday where we kind of kicked him in the butt a little bit and made him appear. So if you were stuck on that, it's very possible that he'll be there if you go check now. Otherwise, it will be permanently fixed on Monday. And also grouping fixes. So last patch, we did have some fixes going in that was addressing some of the grouping issues. We have more improvements going into Monday's patch. And real quick, just wanted to kind of touch on what we mean when we say grouping issues, what exactly we're looking at, what the fix is going to include.
Some of those do impact the activity finder, the LFG system.
It does. And a lot of times we'll see people saying, oh, there's grouping problems, but what is that?
Or
what
I'm
are we
queuing
fixing?
for a really long time.
So we have a couple examples just to kind of make it clear, make sure we're all on the same page. Let's say player A, we'll say me. I send Jess an invite. Jess accepts the invite, and I just never see that Jess joined the group.
So it looks like I snubbed Gina.
There's nothing there. And it's like, Jess, where are you? I sent you the invite. It seems like, or the game basically thinks that we're both grouped, but we're not. Mm-hmm. So that was partially fixed last Monday. It will be hopefully fixed coming up next Monday. And in the meantime, sorry, I'm kind of trying to read and talk here. We do have a couple workarounds. You can try zoning, relogging. A lot of times that'll fix the issue. There's another case where, let's say I send Jess another invite, want to group with her, she accepts, and then nobody's placed into a group. Mm-hmm. A lot of times this has to do with the group leader. The game's just kind of getting confused about who group leader is. That will also be addressed in Monday's patch, 257. This also impacts groups that are formed through the grouping tool, like Jess was saying. it seems like groups are formed, but then you're immediately disbanded, and then you get hit with that 15-minute debuff. So all that stuff will be addressed coming next Monday.
Oh, and one thing too, I wanted to clarify. I know that
Please do.
Lindsay, who created this system, kind of helped me understand this. When you get that 15-minute timer, it's actually something that everyone gets as soon as you get into your activity through the group finder. It's not really it's not meant to be like a penalty or a debuff that you get for doing something bad. It's just something that you get as soon as your group forms, so that you're encouraged to finish your activity. So just to clarify that, I know he would appreciate it.
One other thing to note, when you go into a group until this fix is pushed out, once you're done playing and you're finished with the group, disband first and then log off. Because a lot of times if you log off while you're still in a group, that's when you can find that you've gotten yourself into a state where you can't group up in the future.
Right.
So just a tip, just in case.
And these fixes are coming to console.
They are coming to console as well. So you shouldn't have an issue next week when we push out update 11 on Xbox and on PS4.
Yep. And something else that's coming to console that we have seen with the launch of Update 11 on PC and Mac is serial performance improvements, I guess, is the best way to put it. So since Update 11, we're not saying it's perfect and it's completely resolved, but we have seen really good strides in serial performance improvements. And we're happy to bring that to our console players next week, on Tuesday.
We were looking at a graph not too long ago, and
how did Brian describe it? He said the spikes were going like this
instead
before,
of like this,
and now they're like that. You guys like that?
That like that is good. So
the spikes are much smaller.
We would love to show you, but we just don't have it here, so we'll just kind of animate it for you.
And Brian's probably laughing at us now.
Yes. So next Tuesday, Xbox and PS4 is getting Update 11, Shadows of the Hiss DLC Game Pack. Super exciting. You get the 2 new dungeons and the Style Parlor.
Costume dyeing,
yep.
dye stamps.
What else? Console text chat.
Console text chat.
That is coming. We published an article on the website recently just kind of outlining console text chat, how it's going to work, what it'll look like. You can see on the screen, this is kind of the default. This is the small version of the text. There's also medium and larger text. And then this is sort of like a full screen version. It's optional. This will allow you to kind of click on, or not click on, I'm sorry.
Select
In a sense. When items are linked in chat, you can kind of scroll through. So totally optional. I know we saw some PTS players were screenshotting it and everyone's like, oh my God, it takes up the whole window, but you don't have to click on it. So some other fixes that are going into the console patch, a fix for the random loading screens that you've been running into, low FPS, that should all be addressed. Also, frequent crashes. Wow, it's Friday. A frequent crash that you get in Orsinium around the clothing station, that should be fixed. In addition to invisible NPCs, invisible fixtures, things not loading in, that'll all be addressed. So we're excied to get that patch out next week.
Yes, very much. And then lastly, we are going to Gamescom and PAX West, as some of you may have seen. Gamescom is next week. Our German community manager, Kai Schober, will be there on the 19th and the 20th. So if you're going to be there, please stop by and see him at the ESO Tavern. It's going to be fun.
And also, it's going to be Rich Lambert, our creative director, the dungeon lead, Mike Finnigan, and Matt Fire, our game director, will be there, I think just for one day, though. I think.
I am not 100% sure. And then PAX West, just a couple weeks after, the 2nd through the 5th, we'll be there all 4 days.
Holy schedule.
Yep, there's our schedule. So if you are going to be there, we hope we'll see you. It's going to be a lot of fun. If you're not going to be there, we'll be live streaming everything. So you can tune in and watch throughout the 4 days. We'll also be doing lots of giveaways for people there and even people who can't be there. So it'll be worth following us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We'll be using the same hashtag we used for PAX East, which was hashtag ESOHQ. So you can watch for that.
I see somebody in chat saying he's going to be there.
Awesome.
Can't wait to meet you, Sepultura_13.
We are actually looking for a few really awesome players to join us on some of our panels. There's a thread about it on the official forums. If you're interested, let us know. You can look at the thread and either reply there or send us an email at community@elderscrollsonline.com. So I think that wraps up our news and updates. So now I think next we're going to talk to our QA superstars.
QA guys. I don't know if we don't. We're just going to get into it.
Yep. Hi, guys. Hey, it's like you've been there all along.
Hello. Yeah. They've been silently listening. So this segment, Anatomy of a Bug Fix, it was taken from the forums from Prayfar. Thank you very much. Basically, we put up a thread on the forums just kind of soliciting ideas like, what would you like to see on the show? Let us know. And this seemed like a really interesting one. We're going to basically talk about the steps that we take from start to finish when we receive a bug report, where they come from, any challenges that we run into, and we'll have a very short Q&A at the end. So just to introduce these guys, we have Dan Goldberg. He's our QA supervisor. Hello. Kyle Harris,
Hello.
Kyle, who's usually behind the camera, our lead QA analyst.
On this side this time.
He is getting some FaceTime today.
Hi, guys.
Hi there.
Thanks for joining us.
Welcome. Glad to be here.
Would you like to just briefly go over what you do here, what your responsibilities are?
Sure. So I'm QA supervisor, and I help QA management organize department-wide testing initiatives, which could include overtime, tracking various tasks and things that happen to come up with, leads that might have concerns about things. Putting out a lot of different fires,
Managerial
usually
stuff.
small fires. Hopefully, working with a lot of different groups, a lot of different hats, and that's kind of a recent change. Up until recently, I was a lead working with the figure art team, so they worked on, armor, weapons, hair adornments, all of that. A lead like this gentleman right here.
Nice segue. I am
That was good.
content QA lead. I work on things like quests, monsters, NPCs, dungeons, world building, a whole bunch of stuff.
Nice. So, just got to throw it out there. Dan usually has really good Halloween costumes.
Yeah.
Every Halloween, a bunch of us in the studio get dressed up. And a couple years ago, Dan used to have a really nice head of hair, and then he came in, shaved it all, and had this amazing costume. So, in the morning, on the left, he was Walter White, and then, no kidding, in the afternoon, he switched and became Heisenberg, and it was so good.
It was uncanny.
It was awesome. And yeah, it was like he just became this guy, and it was like, wait, yesterday you look completely different. So
It's so great. Even in the parking garage, people were doing double takes like, is that Dan? Yeah. That's Dan.
And then it stuck for 2 years.
I got questions for weeks after.
that Walt?
Is this permanent? Like, maybe.
he kept it.
Did.
All right, so diving into this, let's get started just talking about where bug reports come from, because
For all the
it
different
seems
places.
like they come from everywhere.
Yeah, they do. They can come from everywhere. They can come from slash bugs that you put in. They can come from, if you mention something on the forums or any number of other sites like Reddit, we have people looking for those too. We have Twitch streams. We have internal reports that we notice when we're doing passes on things. So from any one of these places, we can have bugs that get generated. And the first thing that we'll end up doing once we either hear about a bug that's been entered or we investigate a bug and we have to enter it ourselves is we start making sure that we can actually reproduce what's going on, and that involves investigation. If we're investigating, we can't find exactly what's happening, maybe we have to change some of the details or get more details and test various edge cases. But once we have that, all our bugs go into a pretty big database that all of our leads end up looking at, not just daily, but hourly, and making sure that when they're looking at these bugs, they're getting assigned out to the right teams, they're getting scheduled properly, more or less, so they can be triaged in a timely manner. And from then on, it's basically the teams themselves, the leads on art, content, all of the various teams that we have in the studio, and their producers that will end up triaging those issues, assigning them a priority, and assessing when or whether they can be fixed. If we run into some tricky issues we'll start to assess during that triage, like, okay, how safe is it to try and implement a fix? How many things does it touch? If we were to try and fix this, what's the risk?
Like, does it touch every quest in the game?
Exactly, every quest, every ability. How many systems are involved? Is this just an isolated incident, or is this something systemic? And those are always the scarier ones.
And I imagine, especially things like abilities, I mean, that touches everything, and that's considered very risky.
Player abilities, monster abilities, balance.
Yeah, balance,
Yeah.
exactly.
And a lot of times, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is why a lot of ability fixes wait until updates to go in instead of incrementals, because
Absolutely.
Require a lot more testing.
Jinx.
Yeah, it's something, if we try to throw those in last minute, nobody would be happy. So even though some people might like to have those things sooner, it's best to give them the adequate time so we can thoroughly review all the changes, all the things that could be, touched through a ripple effect of,
Make
any
sure it
kind of
goes in
adjustment.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, what are some of the most helpful things that players or even us can put into a bug report for you guys?
Any sort of reproduction steps. What were you doing? How did you get to where you were when you encountered the issue? Even down to any information really can help. What armor were you wearing? What class
Right.
are you? What race is your character?
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of folks, especially when I was an art lead looking at this stuff, I would see reports of like, okay, well, here's a screenshot that has a problem with my armor. And sometimes that's great. Sometimes we can identify those armors and stuff by eye, but it's really helpful to know, just if you're calling it out, like what style this is, what level your character is, when it dropped, all those various things.
The more the better, it sounds
Exactly.
like.
There's not really such a thing as too much information.
Yeah.
So the more the
Even
better.
like if you're grouped, if you're on a quest, if
Exactly.
you're not on a quest, if
Like, as an example, internally we'll document pretty much every step that it takes us through, like logging into the game, setting up our character, down to the place that we will move that character to, who we'll interact with, what chests we'll loot, every step of the way. Now, I mean, obviously not everybody will be thinking all the time, okay, what have I been doing the past 15 minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as much detail as can be included is great.
yep.
Okay, that's good to know.
And as far as setting priority for different bugs, I know you guys kind of have your own system, and then production does
Right.
their own thing.
So yeah, we'll assess how severe that we think an issue is, and when issues are being triaged, production and the leads involved will take a look at our severity and look at the any screenshots, the repro steps, the actual impact of the bug, and then based on all that information, assign a priority for dev attention for a fix.
And presumably something that is like preventing a lot of people from playing the game gets higher priority.
Yeah,
Most of
yeah. So we have on our own side in terms of assessing severity, if it's blocking people from playing the game, that's like top severity. Like if people cannot get in, that's what we call A severity. If there's potential workarounds and stuff, slightly less severe, but it's still pretty important. And generally speaking, there's some cosmetic stuff and typos
typos,
that get
yeah.
some of our lowest severities. So yeah, there's definitely tiers to how we make sure we're communicating how severe an issue is.
And how long it takes to fix also has some bearing too, right?
definitely.
Yeah,
ahead.
so I was going to say, if an issue is more severe, we usually will try, if it's not too risky, we'll try to fix that as soon as we possibly can. If we can live with something a little bit longer, if it's not super urgent, if there aren't other things, jumping to the top of the must-fix list, then it could stick around a little bit longer, unfortunately. So.
Okay.
Let's see.
Just to add to that as well, it goes into what we were talking about earlier with the risk factor. Is if there's a bug with an issue on a system or an ability like you were talking about, it might affect the rest of the game. So that might take a little longer to fix, just to make sure that it's not breaking other aspects.
I know a lot of times, we'll publish patch notes and say, oh, this thing's fixed, and then everyone will log in and we'll find that, it's fixed in this one case, but there's other instances where it's not completely fixed. And I know it's impossible for you guys to test every single instance
It is.
in the game.
We do try to open our minds to as many different variations of an issue as we can to try and catch those. Sometimes we get them, sometimes we don't, but we're always trying to think of new ways. What can we add to our test cases? How can we improve our processes?
And sometimes players think of things that we as developers don't think of, which is something that the
That's
dungeon
true.
team is going to touch on later in the show.
Now,
So when you guys get a bug on the PTS, and let's say it goes into that pool that you then assign out to the different teams, does it then go to the developers to get fixed, and then it comes back to you for testing?
Yeah. So once an issue has been triaged by production and the actual teams that would fix the issue, they'll presumably check in whatever fixes that they have, submit whatever files or assets, and it would go back to a different bucket for us to for all the leads to look at and assign back to maybe themselves, maybe to other testers, for us to actually verify that fixes have gone in. So in some cases, if this is, if the bug was internal and we were just looking at issues that have never gone out live, then that's pretty much where it ends. But if we are looking at live issues, in that case, we'll verify it internally, but we have a very extensive build process so that once we've verified something that affects live players, we look at that internally. Once we've kicked off a build that transitions all of that data from our internal development server over to our next step in the process towards getting all this to live, then we'll have to verify it there too.
So there's a few steps along the way
Yes.
before it gets to live.
Sometimes more than a few.
Yeah, this might be 6 or 7 depending on
Depending on
the issue.
where it needs to go.
and there's a lot of different servers too to go through.
Yeah. So we have, just offhand, I know there's 3 different steps to making sure that we can get new code onto our internal development realms. That's BBT, we've got coders, we've got integration. And then we might get everything to development, and after that, if we're pushing this out to live, it'll go to our release candidate server, and then we'll push that out to our internal live servers, and then if everything is good there, at least on the PC Mac side, it can get deployed to the mega servers.
And then more steps on console.
There's
as well.
different, certification is involved. We have an entirely different set of servers for the consoles.
So when you guys are testing like a fix for, let's say, something in Cyrodiil where you need a whole bunch of people, do you get like the whole department in there? Do you guys use
Frequently.
bots?
Yeah,
Yep.
yes to both questions.
Both. Yeah.
All the things.
We will get as many people as we can to help stress test various issues. If something only manifests when you have a lot of players in one place, like in Cyrodiil, then yeah, we do our absolute best to try and replicate that as often as we can. And yes, we have bots in there too to try and help simulate, because obviously we don't have hundreds and hundreds of QA, unfortunately. But yeah, bots we can easily have hundreds and hundreds of.
Sure.
So that helps.
And do you guys, do you ever hop on the PTS or the live server to test things too?
Yeah, sometimes we do, especially if we have to evaluate whether or not an issue is occurring entirely or occurring in a very specific way on the live environment. Sometimes there could be an issue that manifests, but sometimes it's slightly different. Sometimes it's not there at all, and we will absolutely have to log on to those environments.
I remember a
to get
really
baseline.
old one. It was at least a year ago, if not 2, where some quest spawners weren't spawning just specifically on live. And that was something
Yes.
we were only able to get on live.
Yeah, it's the environments can behave differently, and those
Yeah,
are always
for sure.
extremely tricky situations to deal with.
Now, what about, I'm sure along the line, you've been here for a few years now, do you have like a favorite bug, or like what was the most difficult bug that you've had to deal with? Like there's got to be some good QA stories.
So, I mean, I don't know if I have any favorites at this point, but I know one that I worked with recently it was either Trinimac shoulders or Malakoth shoulders, the light instance of that set. When players would wear that with all of the other set pieces, all the same style, there weren't any issues. But if you swapped on a different helmet, weird things would happen to your shoulders. These were like wing-style shoulder pads, and you get like half of it that would just either black out or take on a weird texture. And it turns out we had to reauthor some of our helmets to make sure that this was something we could support, because we do some cool stuff sometimes, and we don't know immediately what all could be impacted by some of this cool stuff. So,
kind of like puzzle pieces, huh?
yep.
We had a good internal bug one time where on the character select screen you can take your character and spin them, and it'll spin around and then do a cool little emote.
he kind of gets sick or dizzy
Yeah.
or whatever.
And internally, if you did that and then switched to a different character on your character select screen, the characters would then explode into these dead space necromorph-looking
It was-
creatures.
Oh my gosh.
Quite,
It was a good
quite
one.
a thing to see. You don't want to see it. Maybe you do, maybe you don't.
One of my favorites, it was from, I think, a couple of years ago. I don't even know how it happened or how you could get it to happen, but the top part of your body would stay still and then the bottom part would just spin
Oh,
around.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There have been various animation things. I know at one point there was an issue. I don't know if players got to see this, but sometimes when you would jump from high places, depending on what like weapons you had in your hand, sometimes your upper torso would keep running, but your lower torso, your legs, would do like a roll animation, so your legs would like
Oh,
curl
yeah.
around through your
Oh my
body
gosh.
while you kept moving.
That was a good one.
So
That was a good
fantastic.
one.
So I saw a couple people in chat just asking, how do I get into QA? I feel like it's a good, foot in the door, or you're just really interested in testing. We do have a jobs website, and I believe we're looking for some QA contractors.
Yeah,
or,
I mean,
Believe
we
so.
are
Intern or
looking for
something,
contract
yeah.
positions right now. So.
jobs.zenimax.com
Yeah.
if you're interested. So this was, I think, a really good insight in how things are handled. Just the whole process of going
What is
from
the path that a bug goes
something's
through?
broken and
There's
now
so much.
what are we going to do about it? So thanks for kind of
Yeah.
sitting in and explaining
Very
the whole
welcome.
thing
Thanks
and
for having us.
Yeah.
showing your face.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Thanks so much, guys.
Gorgeous mug. You're welcome.
And before you go, we are going to do a giveaway.
Yay.
Our first giveaway of the show. But guess what? We need a keyword. What should the keyword be?
Oh,
There we go.
Walter?
That's
Good
it.
one.
Walter?
Walter.
Okay.
For Walter White.
For Walter.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was
Got it.
I am partial.
for
Got
Halloween.
it.
Dan
To
was
Walter.
All right. So type in Walter for Walter White because that's who Dan is.
Yeah.
You guys will have to watch for not next year's, but this year's Halloween Zoss photo to see what he does.
Got some stuff planned.
We usually like to post like a company
Should be
photo
good.
on Facebook and Twitter every
I
Halloween.
don't know how much of my face you'll be able to see, but we'll see.
Well,
What
we'll
are
just
you
have to
gonna
point an
be?
arrow.
That's
Dan.
Dan.
We should have internal votes. What we think Dan will be this year. Have
Make it happen.
like a Dan pool.
Make it happen.
Dan Poole.
So what is this giveaway for? Let's see.
We'll make this for an ESO crown pack.
Okay.
1,500 crowns for a platform of your choice. So the winner is
Drum roll, please.
King Mike's son.
King
Yeah.
Mike's son, congrats.
Congratulations.
Does that make you a prince?
Nice. I'm trying to figure out how to send you a message, but I can't. Oh, here we go.
All right.
I'm
Well,
making it happen.
while
So,
she's doing that, thank you guys so much for joining
Thank
us.
you.
You are
It was
welcome.
very insightful.
Thank you for having us.
indeed it was. And now we're going to get right into our next segment.
Our
which
Ask
is
Us Anything
Ask Us
segment,
Anything.
where we'll answer some of your questions from the official forums and.
Actually, King Mike's
Twitter.
son, if you could shoot me a message, that would be a lot easier.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so we're just going to dive right into these questions. This one is from Old Man Jim. When is Music of Tamriel Volume 2 due for release? So this is something that will likely be released next year. There's no set date yet, but we want to make sure we can pack all kinds of new music onto it before we release it. So it is planned.
All right, so the next question, and just to kind of reiterate where we're getting these questions from, it's from the Ask Us Anything thread. It's sticky at the top of general discussion on the forums. So in case you want to ask a question, that's where we kind of pull.
That's the majority.
pull
Every
most
once
of
in a
them
while,
from.
if we see a good question on Twitter or Reddit, we'll grab it, but that's definitely like 95% where we get them from.
Indeed. So the next question is from Lady Lathala. Please, can you give us estimates on maintenance times, especially if it's going to be more than the regular 2-hour maintenance? We certainly can, and we have actually started doing this for a couple of the longer maintenances that we had recently. We'll typically post this on the forums under the maintenance announcements categories.
Yep.
We try and sticky it at the top of recent discussions also. And we'll update that thread if we find that maintenance is going to go a little bit longer than the original ETA. So we will start trying to do more of that.
And in the event of an unplanned maintenance, let's say like some of the ones we had over the weekend, due to unforeseen issues. We do try to pop into the discussion thread about that on the forums and provide ETAs as soon as we have them. So this is by Matrix00. Can we please get a timer for the availability of enlightenment, the same way that there's timers for writing training and research traits? So being enlightened is different from the writing training and research timers because you can still get XP when you're not enlightened. You can't research at all while the queue is full, so it's important to know when the clock is up. With enlightenment, we let you save 12 days at a time, so you don't have to use it up as soon as it becomes available.
All right, so the next question is from Celis Dranacia. We're going with that. Asking, some people are concerned that one Tamriel will cause many of the zones to become laggy due to 3 times the number of players in each area. What do you say to that? I will tell you. There will be a cap to the number of players that are allowed in a certain channel, or in this case, kind of like a copy of the zone. Once the server detects that, it's going to spin up a new channel, and then all those players will be funneled into the new channel. This isn't really new tech, though. We've actually had this running on the live server since the launch of the game. So hopefully that should help, and you won't really see a whole lot of performance issues.
And that is something we can adjust, too, if we need to.
Yeah,
so we're not locked in at a certain cap. So this one's by Pandori. Can we have a better filter or search feature on guild stores, specifically for consoles, but I'm sure this is something everybody would appreciate too. It's getting quite difficult to sort through hundreds of purple motifs and armors to find what we want. So that's a great idea. Guild Trader usability is on our radar and something we want to improve. We don't currently have a scheduled update for it, but we do like the idea.
Underscore Chaos has the next question. Why can't we mount during combat, and would you consider changing this? We want there to be some risk to combat instead of allowing you just to ride off whenever you find that you're getting in a little over your head. That said, we are currently reviewing the rules for when you're considered to be in combat. And this is particularly an issue that we want to solve for gameplay in Cyrodiil. So look for that coming.
This one is by Craner, 1974. Can we have an option in the dye station or barbershop with options for armor to look battle damaged, worn, weathered, or even dirty? I think it would be a cool option rather than all of us running around in shiny armor all the time. What, heroes don't just have all shiny armor? There are currently no plans at this time to allow weathering or damage modeling on existing equipment appearances, but many crafting motifs are built to convey more use than others. We do plan to continue adding new styles to the game with every major update, so we may explore more heavily battle-worn looks in the future.
Interesting. I don't know. Whenever I fight, I always keep my armor very
kind of
clean.
spit and polish.
I do. You know what? Gotta look good. This is so fabulous. Psycho Days has the next question. Can the phrase, "Can I join your group," please be added to the emotes on console? We don't really have immediate plans to add quick chat emotes, though the addition of text chat next week is definitely going to help with communication, specifically on console. Even with the text chat implemented, we will still monitor the overall demand for additional quick chat emotes. It is worth calling out, though, that there is an existing option that you could use in the meantime, which is group up. That's what it's group up with a question mark.
Yep.
I wasn't. It's not like I wasn't sure of what I was saying. I'm Ron Burgundy.
This one is by Razor71. Would it be possible that when a character has maxed out their crafting at 50, that they could pick up or deliver a writ anywhere? This would allow you to receive surveys and treasure maps to the location you turn them in at. So we've been looking at a number of ways to keep crafting writs engaging and rewarding, especially for top-end crafters, but want to be careful not to trivialize them. So stay tuned for more details in the near future. Wink.
Wink, wink. Dunham Day. Apologies. Are you guys going to plan any sort of seasonal events around Tamriel that we can go and participate in and then get awards or rewards or items that can be used? Yes, we are. Some of you may have already gotten a taste of this during the last round of PTS that we had. We had the Witches Festival available to test for just a couple weeks. So participating in this event, which will be available later in the year, I wonder when, if it's called Witches Festival, that will give, around Christmas time, that'll give you a chance of obtaining special items unique to that event. And that's going to be the first of many seasonal events that we're planning on hosting.
This next one is by Spees. This is actually one we get a lot. Why aren't capes and cloaks implemented in the game? So we actually don't have a cloth simulator in our game engine, so making them look good would be a huge challenge for the art team. In addition, having them move naturally, reflect light correctly, etc., is very expensive on the technical side and would have a large impact on client performance.
Good answer, Jess.
Thanks.
DRX Harbinger with the next question.
Mike, stop it.
It was a good question. Sheesh. On console, can we have an option to craft X amount of potions and food at once? It's immensely tedious and repetitive, and button mashing is a massive killjoy. You know what? Some people like button mashing. Mario Party? I mean, anyway. That is definitely something that we would like to add to the game in a future update. And that's all we have to say about that.
This is by Groomp. That's fun to say. In terms of Cyrodiil PvP, could there be a way to negate or at least greatly reduce points earned during a low population campaign? We have population bonuses that poll every 30 minutes, checking population disparity and awarding scoring plus alliance point bonuses to the underpopulated and underscoring sides.
There you have it. Pandori, back with another question. Can we have a return to sender feature in our in-game mail specifically for console? This would be especially advantageous for guild leaders trying to respond to an in-game message from guildies. Assuming you mean reply, that is something that we would like to add as well. In fact, we've already done some of the initial investigation and design work for it, so we are working.
Awesome. This is the last one, guys. And then we will get into talking to Mr. Funny Guy over here. Mike. Auditorium. The empty health bars for players and NPCs are visible on some of my tunes, usually the older ones, and are not for others. Other times I'm able to see them depending on which PvP campaign I'm in. Is there a setting to make these visible, or is this a random UI effect? As described, this does sound like a bug. Health bars are character specific, and there are settings so it could look different across characters, but they shouldn't ever appear empty. The health bar should even disappear when something dies. If you post a screenshot, Auditorium, if you're out there, we'll see what we can do to get this fixed, and we can also follow up with you on the forums.
So, just throwing it out there, I've seen a couple people in chat asking about EU issues. Just know that we are investigating that actively. We know
even though we're here.
Well, we are not investigating, but somebody out there is looking into it. For any of you that currently can't log into EU, you're getting hit with an error message. We are looking at it.
Yep.
So, coming up next, where's my cheat sheet here? Development versus reality. Another suggestion that we got from the forums. This one was from Anita Joan B17_ESO. Basically just wondering what the difference is between a dungeon or a trial as we originally planned it and how players actually go through the content. So another kind of fun feature that we wanted to.
It's like how do you as players impact design and development?
Yeah.
Because you do.
Indeed. So we have our dungeon lead, Mike Finnigan, back again on the show.
Who's been heckling us for the last 10 minutes.
Whispering little chips in our ear. And then joining him is senior QA tester Jay Hartman. And they shop at the same store, apparently.
We do.
We have,
Say the same thing too. Twins.
we are twins. I know it's hard to tell us apart. I'm Mike.
It's the dungeon uniform.
Dungeon uniform. So Mike is our dungeon lead. Jay, do you want to just talk real quick about what,
sure.
what you specialize
What
in?
would you say you do here, Jay?
I do
What
everything.
do you do exactly?
I'm on the content team in QA. Specifically, I work with dungeons alongside with Mike and the rest of the team, Cypher, as people are referring to in Twitch chat. I deal a lot with dungeon balance, dungeon implementation, trials, pretty much anything that involves a group or anything that is impacted by the dungeon team directly is where I specialize in.
And we hear that you're one of our better players here.
I am the player representation. Yes.
No pressure.
No pressure at all.
He's our first line of defense. If we come up with a mechanic or something like that, we usually throw to Jay first and say, hey, how would you break this? Or how do you think players would do this? And oftentimes he's like, well, I'll just burn through this. And it's like, okay, we got to make it harder. So
Do it.
yeah.
So just to kind of kick things off, we know that you have some notes to go through. In general, do players ever really do anything that surprised you or that wasn't really planned at all when going through dungeons or trials?
Yeah, actually quite a bit. I think if we go back to the days when the trials first came out, when we first launched, and then Kraglearn came out, and we had the trials, Hellra and Ethereum Archive. I think that we were caught a little bit off guard by how effective stack and burn was, which was everybody just gather up into a ball and start AoEing and stuff like that, and kill,
Go
and everything
mechanics.
melted and died.
Yeah.
And I think we were caught a little bit off guard by just how effective that is. But part of the dangers of leaderboard content is adjusting that kind of stuff on the fly, then it affects leaderboards and stuff like that. So we tried to take the knowledge that we gained from that going forward. So Sanctum of Phidia, which was the first trial after that, implemented new ways to kind of prevent that with the spreading poison, and then eventually Maw of Lorcage even pushed it even further to get people to break up, and we even implement that stuff in dungeons and stuff like that to break people up and get them apart. So that's probably one of the main things that we took away from the very early trials. I know that, yeah? Were you going to say something else?
No, that was it. Just making a little comment, a little cheated comment.
I know around the same time we saw players getting really creative about sneaking around monsters and Hellra on AA too.
In Hellra, yeah, I know in Hellra the
Gate event.
the gate. So for those that aren't familiar with it, you split apart, and one group goes in a lower gate, and one group goes in a gate that leads above. So what people figured out early on that we didn't catch in testing was you kind of crouch and you stealth, and you go to in front of that gate, and then the monsters didn't attack you or anything like that, and you didn't get hit by the oil or anything like that.
Very clever.
It was very clever, and what's funny is when we upgraded them or kind of just made them scaling, and then took a look at some of those mechanics for Shadows of the Hist, that was one of the things we fixed, and it was really quite humorous to see on some of the streams when people first went in there, like, all right, well, let's see. They probably didn't fix this. Let's go see. And then they stealthed up and instantly started getting hit. They're like, okay, that doesn't work anymore and stuff like that. It's not particularly difficult. It's just something that they can't do anymore. So it's one of those things that we definitely wanted to take a look at and fix.
So you guys watch a lot of live streams. Do you ever watch them and go, oh man, they just haven't got the strategy yet. They haven't figured out the mechanic.
Absolutely.
Or alternately, see something that you guys have never done as a strategy.
I know in particular that that's funny is we get to see the streams, and we have an idea kind of the way we think players are going to tackle this. Usually it comes from Jay running the crew that tests the trials and stuff like that, and they'll go, okay, we think players are going to do this, or this is how we would handle it. And so we go into it and we make sure that some of these strategies work, and then if it's a strategy that's a little bit overpowered, we kind of do stuff to counteract that or get people to break apart, like stack and burn and breaking that up and stuff. So, but one interesting aspect that we saw in the Twins boss in Maw of Lorcage, Vishai and Skinrai, people used siege shields to extend the range of their spells, and that was something that we didn't use in testing at all. So siege shield is only going to prevent damage from siege weapons, but it does have the added benefit of extending your range of your spells. So that was something that we didn't see in testing. But then when we see streams and we see people dropping siege shields, and we're like,
really
what is that's not
creative,
going to do? And then we see them extending their spells so that they can get across the ring. We're like, oh, that's pretty smart. So then it's one of those things that we're like, we're not going to change it or nullify that. But it was just a clever use of that kind of mechanic. So.
Okay.
So was there anything that you generally thought players would do, but then they actually didn't do, or it really wasn't even that common?
I think that tends to happen on every encounter.
I think it tends to happen where our testers will come in and they'll handle things and tackle things a certain way, and then we learn to expect kind of what we think that the players are going to do. But there's some things like to go back to that one example of the Twins is nobody I've seen on a stream or seen mentioned in forum or anything like that handles that encounter the way our testers do. The way Jay's team kind of ran that. That they do it a completely different way, and I've
Is
never
one more
seen
efficient than the other, or is it just different?
I think
could argue.
you could argue. It's one of those weird things. I don't know that their kill times were any faster than what players are able to do, or what players are doing on live now. But it was just a different way, and we thought players were going to do that strategy. We thought it was going to be, and I'm not going to tell you what the strategy is. But we thought players were going to do that strategy, and they just never did. They kind of continue to do it. Kind of everybody does it the same way now. So now we go, okay, well that's going to be something that people are just going to do like this forever. There's certain mechanics in Zajasa in Maw of Lorcage that there's one particular mechanic that I haven't seen mentioned anywhere by players. So I don't know if players understand that it's something that happens during the fight. So that's an interesting thing to take a look on the forums and on Twitch streams and stuff like that and say, oh, okay, well, they're going to get this. But they never mention it. So if they know it happens, I don't know that they know it happens. But and our testers very much knew what was going on in that. So they learned to do things in a particular way in order to kind of counteract that. So
do you guys in the dungeon team ever sit in streams, or maybe even in guild chats, or in the trial runs and
run
just
trials
go
on live,
and just go?
So yeah, I mean, you know what's funny is you know what that's actually a funny thing is I'll run trials on live, and it's
how hard is it?
It's a very humorous thing to be in a trial group, and everybody stopped and like, all right, let me explain the strategy for this fight, and I'm like. I'm all ears. I'm all ears.
Please, go ahead.
I would love to hear. Tell me what's going to happen in this fight.
Do you ever troll
or we do
anyone?
It in dungeons? Not at all. And
are you like,
do it
hey,
in
can
dungeons.
You explain to me how to do this?
Sometimes it was like, has anybody not done this? I was like, I've never done this before. Can you explain it to me? And it's funny to see kind of that aspect, and it also going into the dungeons. Now our entire team, we all play live, so we all go into dungeons at various points too. And yeah, it's great to be in a stream and then have people like, or not a stream, but in a dungeon in a group, and somebody's like, let me explain to you what's going to happen in this fight, and we're like, okay, all right.
Well, it must be cool to see the different
cool
ways
when they get it
approach.
right.
Yeah.
And then it's not so cool when they don't get it right, because then I'm going, oh, this is going to end bad. This is going to end bad. And I'm like, all right, guys, let's go. So that's part of what it is we all kind of just bite our tongue and go, okay, all right, let's see if we can do this. And then, if it doesn't work out.
So you don't give anything away?
No, we don't. We
no,
try
it's
not to
interesting
give
to see what players come up with.
Yeah,
it is.
A lot of the times we're trying to simulate what we think a player will do, which is where them not figuring out strategies we've done comes from. We try to emulate, because players follow a lot of common trends. So when packages come out, we try and implement things they're doing currently, especially on PTS. And it's fun to see what they do on live. Yeah. Especially when we run as a group of 3 of us or a group of 2 of us, and there's one guy who's either tanking and he's leading the group, or the healer and he's leading the group. But they have some very unorthodox ways to handle things.
Internally, I mean, just as a group playing on live, sometimes we'll be grouped up and we'll only have 2 or something like that, and then we'll run dungeons and get into a random group, and we're like, oh, let's see what this is, and then it's sometimes they're interesting. It's a lot of fun.
Do you ever hear a strategy and you're like, actually, maybe we should try this thing instead?
I say it in my head.
We don't all wipe.
I say it in my head, but I don't like. I mean, if we wipe, we wipe. It's a game, and we're just having fun and stuff like that. And I tend not to get too frustrated. It's actually more enjoyable for us to just kind of hear. What's great is when somebody describes it like they read the design doc. Like they're like, okay, first this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen, and this is going to. I'm like, man, that's right. That is what's going to happen.
Trying to figure out if it's somebody in the office.
We're like, do I know you? They're like, no. Do I know you? I'm like, okay.
Nothing.
It's like they have our internal document open and they're just reading it, and I'm like, that's really impressive.
So I know you guys watch live streams a lot, especially during PTS, and videos that players create. Has that impacted the design of trials and dungeons before they come out on live in the past?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's one of those things that seeing how players play and
seeing what's fun, what works.
Yeah, exactly. And just the strategies they use and how they have fun and how their characters are built and interacted with and stuff like that. It all lends to how we kind of develop, because sometimes we try to get players out of their comfort zone, and sometimes we want to reinforce roles
Right.
stronger. So
It seems like you do that from one fight to the next.
right. So in some places you're going to have a tank, and you're going to have a healer, and you're going to have 2 DPS. And in some places, like the planar inhibitor in White Gold Tower, that's designed to be a little bit of a break from the normal, where you don't need kind of a designated tank, and somebody random is going to get the vision, so you're going to have to know that person's going to have to know to do this thing. So it's kind of a break in that, and we try to do that every once in a while, but not make every dungeon, every fight completely something you have to learn. Generally, going into it, if you have the 3 roles, you're going to be able to kind of be successful as long as you're not with somebody that really doesn't know what they're doing.
It stands in the stuff.
Yeah.
So when you
13K health
guys,
tanks or anything like that.
when you guys first, well, Jay, when you guys get a new dungeon or a new trial, you just go into it blindly, right? And just
It
figure
generally
it out
depends
first.
what kind of, like Maelstrom was a good example where a lot of that I went in completely blind. People that we were playing with went completely blind, and we want to try and emulate the experience of somebody going in fresh to see how it is. I mean, Arena 6 was a perfect example of some mechanics can't get conveyed very well, and it's hard to try and see how a player will react to it for the first time. So a lot of the times we try and go in completely blind, but we can look it up for the most part, so
Sure.
they can't hide everything
Well,
from
that's
us. They can't hide everything from us.
So
But,
Jay is
yeah.
also in the unique case of he will have inside knowledge because anytime we do something new, and then he has to test it. So he tests it
Right.
from initial conception all the way up to the thing. But when
Yeah.
he's running a group through it, he will organize the group, but generally he won't give them strategies first of all, and he'll let somebody else kind of pseudo lead. But he will usually plays a healer. And that's just because we don't want you to overtank the DPS stuff.
And kill stuff too quickly.
Because then it's like, we're not balanced to your DPS. But anyways, generally he'll go in there and he'll just organize the group, but then let somebody else lead, and then they'll kick across strategies and stuff like that. Maelstrom was a unique beast in that everybody tested solo, so it was a lot of there was a lot of screaming and fits.
Yes,
in
it's a lot
I
of
remember that.
angry reactions.
and
That
you're
was
just
fun.
standing in the back like,
We were
yes.
all.
Oh, they
we were
love
all
it. They
standing-
love it.
You understand? It's like,
They love it.
And people may see this at Gamescom and PAX when I'm there and narrating dungeon runs. Yeah, I talk a lot of trash. So. So that's really what it is. It's like
So that'll
I'm
be fun at
standing
PAX,
behind
huh?
him, like, "Oh, you died? Why'd you die? You know, you're not supposed to stand in the poison like that, right? There's a plant, right? It's gonna kill you. Oh, I'm sorry.
Someone's gonna strangle
you know
you
that
one
kind of
day.
stuff. Yeah, I know. It's really.
Well, PAX will be fun.
This is why. Yeah, exactly. This is why Rich says, and when he streams, that he curses my name. So, because I
true.
think he hears me in the background.
background.
Just
So you
talking.
know what? I remember you said before the show, because I remember the day it happened, you came in and you were like, yes, somebody finally did it. You were going to say
Yes,
congratulations
I want
to a
to
group.
say congratulations to Beyond Infinity. They are the
They did
first
the impossible.
group to do the impossible. They beat Mauve Lorcage. They beat Rakat on hard mode.
Congrats, guys.
Nice work.
So we launched Thieves Guild, and with it Mauve Lorcage in, I think it was March 7th or early March. It was early March, and it was defeated in early August. So that's 5 months it took for a group to finally be able to beat it. And if you haven't seen their kill video, I highly suggest you do that. It's
Lots of cheering.
The
you
end is
can hear them get very excited. Turn
entertaining.
your headphones down when you do that. They're very ecstatic when they finally beat it.
Great. Well,
Do we want to take some questions? Do we have some questions? I see lots of PvP spam. We're not talking about PvP, guys.
we're not talking about PvP. And you know what? Jess and I are going to turn into Angry Mom. You don't want to see it.
We are going to be talking about some PvP stuff at PAX, though.
This is true.
We have a panel about PvP. So
Indeed.
you can tune in to watch that.
And if anyone watching is going to be at Gamescom, Mike will be there.
Yep.
Yes, I will. Me and Rich.
And Mike will also be at PAX along with
PAX
Rich. Jess and I will be at PAX.
Brian, we'll have
Brian.
Phil Draven, we'll have Matt Weathers drawing some stuff. Everybody's
Remember
favorite.
Matt Weathers? He was so colorful.
Tatiana also is going to be there. Yep.
Tatiana's got a great.
Brian.
Tatiana's got a great thing with cosplay as well as character art.
Yeah.
So
She's got a
Yeah.
really
that's
good,
really good stuff. So.
good panel.
Yeah.
And like Jess mentioned earlier, we will be live streaming all
Yep.
that. So in case you can't actually be there, you can still watch.
So Mike loved the dungeons. Job well done. I saw that very quickly. I was looking for
That guy knows.
questions.
That guy knows what he's talking
He knows.
about. I like
You know
that
what we
guy.
should
Nailed
do
it.
I like
instead?
that guy.
Is a giveaway. We should just do one. I'm waiting for the thing to open up. But we should give away maybe a
What
t-shirt.
platform was the dungeon completed on? Oh,
PC.
I think you're
Oh,
talking
for,
about
Monk?
It
for
was PC. It was
PC?
actually EU server was
EU?
the server, and it was PC.
Cool.
And there are some people that are getting close on, if streams are to be believed, there are some people getting close on Xbox, I believe.
Oh, nice.
I believe so. It's good stuff.
So
Good
close.
Stuff. Yeah.
All right. Well, we are going. What should the keyword be?
Dungeon.
I saw a couple questions
Dungeon.
about the
works. status
of the EU server as chat's moving really, really quick. We'll check as soon as we get back to our desks after the show.
Indeed.
Give you guys an update.
But in
probably
the
on
meantime,
forums.
if you would like to win a t-shirt, go ahead and type dungeon into chat.
I want a t-shirt.
I know. Can I get a t-shirt?
Yeah, can we enter this?
Will we ever get more trials and dungeons? I saw that question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my job, so I hope.
I hope.
If the answer was no, that would really
would be
suck.
sad.
The last ESO live segment was
Last
Mike.
ESO live segment by Mike Finnigan.
Bye, Mike.
Yes, there will be more dungeons and trials.
You guys are always
My team
working
is
on
hard at
something,
work.
right?
My team is
Always
hard at work.
working
We'll put
on
it that way.
something.
Yes, always working on something.
How long does it usually take you to make a, let's say, a 4-player dungeon?
3 months-ish, around there. Yeah, depending.
I know the
Yeah,
trials take
yeah.
quite a bit longer.
Trials take a little bit longer. Trials,
different
trials take a
beast.
little bit longer in development and even longer because of testing.
Balance
because
and testing.
testing is
There's
Yeah.
a lot more time in
you
trials.
need more testers. You need to bring them in here for 3-4 weeks, 6 weeks at a time just to get them to test everything.
Maybe we should get Beyond Infinity.
And then, like, arenas are a completely different beast where they take more development
Oh,
time
sure, yeah.
and less testing time because one tester, well, at least for Maelstrom, for instance, one tester can
Yep.
kind of do that. But yeah,
I saw somebody ask if we could see Jay play through like Maelstrom Arena or something. Jay was actually part of a couple streams that we
I've
did
played a lot
last
of them,
week. Or was it 2 weeks ago now?
it was 2
We
weeks
definitely
ago
didn't do a
on
stream last week.
on MMORPG.
Oh, that. Okay, okay.
MMORPG.com and
Massively
and
okay.
Massively.
Yep.
He was with me when we did.
He was in
those.
the group.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a really good. Like, I died in one of those. Like,
Gotta put me
You
on the
need to
spot
learn
like
to play,
that. To
obviously.
be fair, I thought you were Tony. I thought you were Tony. Which is worse because he was tanking.
Awesome.
uh,
Well, let's choose a winner for ESO t-shirt.
Oh my gosh.
Go ahead, Mike.
It's
What
a
am I
very hard to
supposed to
pronounce
do?
name.
Is it Dwemer?
Crema
Which
Zebra.
is best?
That works.
Congrats.
I'm a zebra.
From the zebra.
He's like,
Yeah, Crema
easy.
Zebra. That's actually my
Easy.
child's middle name. That's why I knew that one right off the bat.
Well, congratulations. Go ahead and shoot me a message if you can. Otherwise, we'll do it after the show and take care of all the logistics there. But thank you for joining us.
Thanks,
Yep.
guys.
Great to have you on the
was
show,
fun.
and it was kind of fun, I think.
Yeah.
And we could maybe even do this with other departments too, like
Maybe PvP. We saw you guys asking a lot about that.
Whatever, development versus reality. So there you have it. But thank you. As our last segment, we just wanted to give a shout out to some of the really cool fan art that we've seen recently.
Just before we go, there's been some really good ones.
Yes.
So
CJ,
this-
hasn't there been good ones? Come on, man.
So this first one is called Daydroth Hunting by Kit. This was inspired by the Zone Green Shade.
Yep.
Said it took the artist about 3 hours to finish.
You know what? If you gave me 3 hours to draw something, it definitely wouldn't look as good as this. This
Really
is
like the perspective.
Cool. Yep. Yeah, they were saying that it was loosely based on green shades, so pretty cool, I think. Mm-hmm. The next one is called Vertigo. It's from Galoo Game Lady. This was actually a commission piece
That
of,
is awesome.
of somebody's Argonian
With
wearing
Dwemer.
really badass Dwemer armor. And the next one.
This is Nadesia
This
by
is adorable.
Netisem. Netisem? I hope I'm saying that right. This is a Khajiit Stamina Nightblade, although I guess he wouldn't know it. in the litany of blood polymorph, and that's why. Riding its wolf mount.
There was actually another piece by the same artist, and it looked like a line drawing of the same character, but totally different style. You can actually see that on the official forums. It's in the community creation section. Lastly, we have a 3D dungeon entrance that was created by, we'll say, Tot 3M. This was a 3D model of one of the loading screens that we have in the game. He said it took him a week to complete. He used Maya and Mudbox. This is a work in progress shot that he had also posted.
Yeah, the first time I saw this, I thought it was a screenshot of our game.
Yeah, it's really good. So we have a lot of talented players. As you can see, everyone creating this really badass fan art. So if you have anything, post it up on the forums. We always look there. We check the ESO subreddit. You can shoot us an email if you'd like.
Instagram even, Tumblr.
Yep.
So we're going to wrap up, but just a few last things. So again, we'll check on the European server issues as soon as we get back to our desks. If you have any questions for us for future ESO Live shows, check that Ask Us Anything thread that Gina mentioned.
And again, if you have ideas that you'd like to see on ESO Live, you can also look at the thread. It's in general discussion, sticky it at the top. That's where you can kind of submit some ideas if you have them, like, hey, I'd really like to see this thing, or meet these certain developers, watch a discussion about XYZ, whatever it is.
Or even if there's something that you'd like to come on the show as a guest, we can get you on Skype and do something like that too.
I know I did see a lot of people saying they'd really like to see the guild spotlight. So we can always interview some guilds maybe, have them Skype into the show and chit chat with us. And just a reminder that Gamescom is next week. PAX is in a couple weeks. We'll be doing an ESO Live right from Seattle, which is kind of cool.
And console launch for Update 11 on Tuesday.
And starting next week for Gamescom, there will be chit chat with Update 12, one Tamriel, so be on the lookout for chatter starting around then.
That's it. Thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Yep. See you next time.
Bye.